Cyberpunk 2077, the most hyped up game of 2020. A game that had fans of CD Projekt Red talking for years. A game that had Keanu Reeves, a large open world, in-depth character customization, and lots of sex. How did they get this so wrong? Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Echoverse Unlimited Show, and it is me, your host, TheTwistedEcho, who is presenting it this week, as usual. And yeah, 7 episodes, that's quite a lot. I'm really enjoying making it. It's something definitely different to what I was doing before, so I'm really enjoying making this new sort of content as well as the reviews, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as it's fun and engaging and you guys enjoy it. But 7 weeks, let's try and keep it going. If we can get 32 episodes, then 52 episodes, 52 in a year, 52 episodes, that would be really cool. So yeah, I am going to try and get one out a week, even when I'm in America. So that will be maybe you'll see a lot of weeks where I'm dressed exactly the same. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. But this week's episode is on Cyberpunk 2077, the controversial game released by CD Projekt Red, and I'm going to be analysing why I think it didn't meet expectations, why the fan base didn't particularly like it, and why it was so confrontational between the internet and became a bit of a meme. But yeah, so this episode we're going to cover all aspects of the game. It's almost going to be like a review, except maybe a little different, because we're going to have a end question to answer is why did this go so wrong instead of what's the rating. So I'm not going to give it a rating at the end, but I'll give it now just in case. So when I was originally reviewing this game, I never finished it, but I originally gave this a 6 out of 10. And that was me playing it on the Xbox Series X, and a 3 out of 10 if you were playing it on the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. I know they've done a lot of work to it, so I am going completely off of my own experience and talking about how it was at launch and not how it was now, which I know it has had a year to improve and get better and develop. So I'm going off of my own playstyle, and if you love the game, put down in the comments below what's better about it now, why I should go back to it, what you think's better. If you agree, disagree, put it all down in the comments. Let's have a conversation, as these shows always try to do. You are just as big a part of this as I am. But without further ado, let's go into the first category. Okay, so the first section we're going to be talking about is the individual characters that inhabit Night City. Now, there's a lot of different side characters in your side quest that are really interesting and engaging, but we're going to be talking about the main ones. So V, and then I'm going to look at Panam, Judy, and River, because they're the main ones that stick out to me. I haven't played the game in a long time, so maybe I should go back to it and see. But and of course, Johnny Silverhand. So, first of all, the voice acting on the most part is really great. The characters are really engaging and they were great. I really enjoyed them. However, you only see them for 3 quests each, and then you don't see them for the rest of the game, unless, in Panam and Judy's case, you decide to go down their ending route, which I think is such a waste. I would have loved to have seen more quests with Panam. I would love it even more if they were companions, because that just would have added so much to the game. Their side quests were easily the best part of the game, in my opinion, and to have them just not there anymore felt like such a waste. And all they do is then you can call them up now and then, ask them the same questions, and then that's it. And I think that's a real shame. They had so much potential to expand on those 3 characters especially, and just didn't take it. Maybe they did originally have longer stories, but it was cut along with a lot of other content, but we'll talk about that later. But it just felt like a weird part of the game to have is 3 amazing characters, and you only have a brief storyline with each. It just doesn't make sense to me. Their performances were generally pretty good, as I was saying. However, the one exception to that is actually Johnny, played by Keanu Reeves, who I love Keanu Reeves. I think he's great in John Wick, and as an action star, he's awesome, Matrix and all that. But here I thought he was really wooden, and I don't know whether that's because he didn't actually like the story or the writing that much. There are a few examples. His own quests where you play as Johnny are a lot better, but when you are just seeing him in cutscenes with V, he's just really wooden and bland. I didn't like his character at all. The others are better. V especially is a really likable protagonist, and I got along with him really well. But yeah, it just felt like Keanu was wasted a little bit. He just didn't feel like an actual character. The others, you could tell, were experienced voice actors. Maybe it's because it's one of his first goes as voice acting, I think. so it is a different gig to acting. But yeah, it just didn't deliver well. I couldn't hear the emotion in his voice. It just didn't work for me. That's completely down to personal preference, though. I think a lot of people did like Johnny Silverhand and his performance, so to them, more power to that. But for me personally, it just didn't work, and was overall quite disappointing. But yeah, I think they wasted Panem, Judy, and River and could have made great companions out of them, like in other big games like Fallout or Elder Scrolls. And I know I can't compare it to that because it's a whole different beast, but this part especially, I would have really liked to have seen some characters that comment on the story go with you, being like, this is fucking crazy. Because they already had a sort of companion system in the game. So to remove it or to not have it as a actual companion system and instead just have it as a way to progress your story with different characters. I don't know. I feel like companions would have made these characters so much better because it's like Judy. There are going to be spoilers for people's stories, so if you haven't played the game, want to avoid spoilers, play it soon. But and then come back to this video. But Judy, you do just she disappears once you complete her final mission. She's like, "I'm leaving Night City. That's it. Goodbye." And then she calls you now and then to like say, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm good." And she's like, "Cool. Bye." And then you don't see it for the rest of the game. And I feel like it's just such a shame that these characters were wasted because I think they could have elevated the actual game to a little bit of a higher mark from me. But I just was left wanting more. So if they did a Panem DLC or a Judy DLC, then I would 100% be here for it. But as I know right now, we don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to hold my breath. But yeah, so they're the characters. And this leads us on to the next bit, the story. Okay, so when we're going to be talking about the story, we're going to start with my least favorite part of this, and that is life paths. So when we first heard about this, what it was 3 different life paths: Nomad, Corpo, and Street, I believe. Yeah. Um, and these 3 were supposed to be unique and way of customizing character and their role in Night City. So if you're a corpo, you're going to be used to the elite, you're going to have suits, you're going to be all that sort of stuff. Nomad, you're going to be into all like the Land Rovers and like going across empty desert in like a small tribe or clan. And if you're a street kid, then you're going to be a brawler in Night City or something like that. Now that on the surface level sounds really cool, and I was so excited for this. I played Corpo, and what was disappointing was, other than the first mission and a few little mentions throughout the game, nothing. That was it for variation between the 3 paths, and I think it was an absolute shame. I just don't understand why they added it in, knowing it was too much for them to handle, if that was the case, or why did they cut it? Because it would have been such a cool way and increased replayability of their game so much, is that whichever lifestyle you pick, completely different experience. Different people will react to in different ways. You can have different dialogue options and different ways of going in and out of places. Maybe opens up different ways to tackle a mission. That would have been really cool, and I would have been so on board for that. But unfortunately, that's not the case here. You never get any variation other than each one having a lackluster mission towards the end of the game. So the Corpo one, you see one of your old associates, I believe, and you have to fight him because he's gone crazy and wants your head or something because of the bounty. But you could never go and hunt down the person who killed your boss or anything. It all just happens off screen, and you can't tackle it because it's impossible. Excuse me. And that just feels like such a shame. And I really, really regret that they didn't include that. But no point spilling over something that's not there, so we're going to look at the actual story now, which in itself is very engaging and lengthy, which is good. They have great quests. Each main mission I really enjoyed. The characters are really cool, and you're going through Night City dealing with Johnny in your head, and that relationship is interesting, and I was pretty much engaged throughout. I just didn't want to explore Night City on the outside, so that's why I didn't love the game. However, there are inconsistencies. Different characters clearly don't take hold of everything that happens in the story. So, for example, in my ending, Mitch was with us in the Nomads, and at the end scene, he was like, "I don't know what you're doing right now, but yeah, I hope to see you again." It's like, we're probably going to see each other at dinner, buddy. Like, we're together. So it just felt that there was a little bit of quest inconsistency in regards to choices. I'm hoping that might have been patched now. If it was a bug or if it was an oversight, then it's been fixed as well. But that's just a little thing. I think there's definitely cut content that they have removed, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, Quests with different characters and different Rogue, for example. I would have liked to see more with her in the story, um, and getting that band back, Silverhand's band back together, or more with Silverhand going into more of his quests. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of cut stuff that could have been really cool, but they just didn't have the time or resources to allocate to that. So there's that issue. And finally, the biggest problem I had with the story was the lackluster end choices. To put it down to 3, I think it was. It was just felt wasted in a game with so many choices. There just felt like there was a lot of inconsistencies. So I would have liked to see um, them sort of branch out and have loads of different characters coming together. If you inspired enough people or made enough allies in your Merc world, the entire Merc base filled with everyone you've ever met will come and help you. Or if you help some rich corpo, they'll give you a little bit of a private army to back you. Stuff like that would just be really cool for the ending, but sadly we don't get that. We get 3 choices, and neither of them are very overly interesting. So I would definitely like to see more variation with that. But yeah, overall the story was pretty good. Like the side quests, the writing in this game is generally pretty good, save for 1 or 2 quests. The gigs are entertaining as well. Even the side missions, like those repeatable missions, are really interesting, and I enjoyed myself through them. But it was just traversing Night City that was the problem, and that is the next issue. Let's have a look at the world. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the most disappointing part of Cyberpunk 2077, and that is the world. In my opinion, it was really weak. For a game that needed to have a really strong and inviting open world and make Night City seem like a great hub to play around in, it really failed. So we're going to start with there's no random encounters. So you're not going to go around Night City and see loads of different things happening every time you drive around a corner. You're just going to see the same old thing, which is really a missed opportunity in my opinion. Night City is the perfect place for random missions to just take place. That you, as you drive around in whatever car or bike, you just see like a white dot like they do in GTA, or you just hear some shouting going on. You go down and a whole new quest starts that you would have missed otherwise. Or you go down and someone's being robbed, and you can either try and help them, you can kill the people robbing the person and take it for yourself, or you can do a number of things. You can kill the person being robbed just to be an extra dick, all those sorts of stuff. That really adds a lot to games, in my opinion. So to not have that in here was a real miss by CD Projekt Red, and it's something that I was really hoping for. And I feel like it makes the open world feel like something you want to explore and go down the longer routes, the scenic routes, to see if you stumble upon something a little bit interesting. But sadly, it wasn't here. There's also barely any inside buildings to go into, so you cannot go into every building ever, which I get. You obviously can flesh out every game, but when the majority of all of the buildings are just inaccessible, almost all of them, I think, it's just a really wasted opportunity. You can't go into any bars, you can't go into any hotels or anything just randomly, unless they've already been built in, like their hub spaces with quest locations. But there's no, and shopping, there's one big shopping center, then there's a few dotted around, but there should be loads. You should be able to go to a bunch of different things and spend your money in different place. But most of the shopping centers are outside or in your own apartment building. You have no other homes that you can buy. So the only thing money can be really used for is weapons and armor and stuff, which you get enough of when you kill people anyway. So that was a real shame. Is definitely more interiors is something that I would have wanted. And it's not that hard to make a cool casino or something a bit different, so that not every inside building is the same process. Hell, Red Dead Redemption 2's got loads of inside buildings that are different. What else? Skyrim, I mean, obviously it has all the buildings are different and interiors and stuff, and that's really cool. There's just loads of different things they could have done. Even a train station, that would have been really cool to go down into. Just these different things really flesh out the game, because right now you're just driving through hollow streets with nowhere special to go. So there's literally no reason to explore half the map other than going to see a little bit of gigs. And finally, the lore system is my least favorite part of the game. We were promised that if we got enough of a bounty going up, mercenaries would come after us or hire SWAT teams, and that just doesn't exist. Police just teleport into where the crime is happening, so you have no chance of running away because these bastards just pop up and start shooting you randomly, even if they spawn in the wall. In some cases, so you can't actually kill them. So you can't. It's the worst lore system I've seen from an AA game in a long time. You don't have a chance to flee. You can't get away with killing someone because police will know your location immediately and just teleport on you, which I think is a real shame. There's no police cars coming up to you or doing car chases or anything like that. They just spawn as you go along, and if you drive off, then they disappear. And that's, I think, a real wasted opportunity for something that would have been really cool in Night City. Doing these big car chases, gang shootouts, stuff like that would have been something I would have loved and would have made the open world so much more impactful. But right now, your decisions just really don't matter. In regards to normal NPCs, if you kill them, you get the police on you. Unless you escape, they shoot you and you die. You can't really go on a mass murder spree. You can't really do anything like that. You can't commit crime. So it's just really a wasted thing in such a criminal-filled city. And it would have been a really interesting thing to explore. Maybe you could have a different side faction, which is responsible for, like, getting you out of lowering your bounty so that you pay less or something like that. Like the Thieves Guild does in ESO. Stuff like that, which Night City is the perfect location for. Just they didn't innovate in that situation, and they really could have made a lot of cool stuff. I think that the lore system admittedly would have been better before they cut a lot of content, but since they cut it, there's just been absolutely no changes, which is a real shame. So yeah, the world overall really disappointed me because I was really hoping for a big, alive Night City that felt that every street was filled with people who you could interact with, like Watch Dogs, for example, or even GTA 5. But again, we just had a lackluster city, which I really did not want to explore. I would just go straight from quest marker to quest marker. I wouldn't dive into any different nooks and crannies. And overall, was just really disappointed by it. Or even going back to it, the characters, Judy, Panem, and that, having them just being in position, and maybe you could go for a drink with them and talk to them instead of just having phone calls everywhere. So you don't actually meet up with very many NPCs. They call you, which is just a wasted way to make the world feel dead. You just go around and you think, I do not want to explore here. And it was probably the biggest reason I struggled with this game, because unless you're in the car with your radio on, you literally have no reason to tune into your game. I just really am disappointed with it. Come on, CD Projekt Red. You can do a hell of a lot better than that, and you know you can. So now we've explored the world, let's talk about the enemies that inhabit it in combat. Okay, so let's talk about combat. So this is the lifeblood of the game itself and what should be the most important feature. And it's okay. The melee combat, I think, is really cool and is probably my favorite version of the combat. Unfortunately, it's not very effective, and if you try and use it, you'll often be overwhelmed by the bullets of the enemy, of which there are very many usually, and there is enemy variety, lots of different bandits. You can see like corporation goons and stuff like that, which are all really cool to fight. Big robots. Interesting bosses. I mean, the actual boxing match quest line was really cool. I didn't get to finish it and beat the last one, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a really interesting quest, and yeah, I was definitely here for that one. But unfortunately, you don't get many opportunities to use melee in this game. So when you do get them, I highly recommend you take them. But yeah, the gunplay is where the game, I think, falls a little bit weaker. Most guns feel the same, unfortunately. The pistols and the rifles feel exactly the same next to each other. And honestly, if you find a good gun, you'll probably end up keeping it for the majority of the game, upgrading it as and when you need to. Speaking of that, I never really used crafting or anything like that because I never had to. If you're playing on the higher difficulties, then you might find it more useful, but I never did. So that was a shame. And also the leveling system with the perks and stuff like that, I personally didn't think worked very well. And that's just personal preference. But yeah, the combat, it was sort of okay. It was very hard to do in car combat, like shooting out the back of vehicles and stuff. But I know that they tried with that, and with the first person, it tries to offer a unique experience on that, and I just don't think it worked for me. Maybe in the future, they'll in well, melee combat was always going to be better because of The Witcher. So if they go back to Witcher, they'll probably keep the melee combat, and gunplay has always been their weaker thing. So it makes sense that their first gun sort of big game, it doesn't have as good gunplay as other companies who specialize in gun combat. So that I think I can forgive. It's just a shame because it really made going into large fights not as fun. If you're going to go from far away and just open up with like a rifle or something. Whereas if you're going in with those arms, those mechanical arms and stuff, then you're going to have a lot more fun. So I wish that they made melee attacks a little bit stronger. But yeah, overall, not too much to complain about or talk about. It's just very generic and pretty simplistically average, I'd say. So next is graphics and audio, and honestly, there isn't again much I can say about this. Graphically, the game looked awful on Xbox One and PS4, which I'll talk about in the next section. But in Xbox Series X, it was okay. They're nothing groundbreaking. Character models especially looked a bit goofy from time to time. And I felt that sometimes even the city could look weird. And it was nothing. I never really stopped and went, "Wow, that looks fucking awesome." When the game was raining, actually was something I remember looking and thinking, "See, this looks all right. This looks decent." But for the most part, I was quite unimpressed with how the game looked. Audio though is great. It's 10 out of 10. Great audio. The soundtrack always goes with the moment, and I was always vibing whenever it came on. And if it was a good action sequence, you'd have a big high octane sort of soundtrack, and that made for a lot cooler action sequences and stuff like that. So I definitely think the audio is definitely CD Projekt Red quality, whereas the graphics, sadly, are just sort of not what I'd expect from CD Projekt Red, especially after The Witcher. To see the character models of some of the characters, especially the children, is just really weak, and yeah, it's quite sad actually. Hopefully that though they have fixed that by now. I haven't gone back to the game, so I don't know if it's all fixed right now. But I hope that they've had a bit of an improvement because when I played, it was really disappointing. However, the one graphics that did look good were your main characters, so Panam, Judy, Keanu, or Johnny, and your main character V. When you saw him, always looked good, and the cutscenes always again looked really stellar. They excelled on that division. It was just in the main open world where sadly the graphics took a bit of a hit, but it's still playable. But we're going to go on to why I think the real reason Cyberpunk 2077 failed. Okay, so we're going to talk about the big reason I think Cyberpunk 2077 did not meet up to expectations, and that was its launch. Because, as many of you will know, when it launched, it was basically unplayable on Xbox One and PS4, despite launching on those services. And it was utterly disgraceful the way it launched. Some of the things I'd seen, and I'm sure you guys have seen the videos of it online, of just bugs, game-breaking bugs going around, the graphics stuttering and crashing a lot. And just all of these different things that added on to make it a truly awful experience if you're on either of the previous generation consoles, which is a really sad thing to have done because that's sort of like the end of the. It was supposed to be the last game of that generation, like the big one before the new games came out. So to have it not be playable on those is really sad, especially with how big the market still was, with all the difficulties getting PS5s and Xbox Series X's. So that's really a shame. And even on Xbox Series X, the character model still looked weird. I still ran into loads of bugs, game breaking and non-game breaking. My game still crashed quite a lot. And I still had a lot of issues, and it wasn't a smooth playthrough even on the newest console. And I know a lot of people on every console had a lot of issues, and that's a really sad thing to have in your game, especially when it's been delayed so much. So the thought that they could have just delayed it again wouldn't have been too big of a problem, really doesn't help their case, because it really could have been really easily sorted out. So the fact that it wasn't is completely on them, and they should be very ashamed of how it launched. And I think they are. They issued an apology, and they've done their best to sort it out with 3 updates and stuff like that, and the roadmap that they're following to try their best to sort it out. So I respect that. I really do. But it's just a bit of a shame, to be honest, because they had so many opportunities to do this better. And I think they should have just delayed it another 4 or 5 months to take the time to polish it, introduce all the features that they cut, and the people would have waited. The hype behind it was so incredibly high, so many pre-orders, that they would have still been fine numbers-wise. The hype would not have dropped off. If you had said what you were going to add and maybe released like a demo or something to help tide over the wave of fans who were still looking forward to it, you would have been absolutely fine. So I think they really should have delayed it, and you would have had a lot better of a game, and you probably would have a fan base sharing in how amazing Cyberpunk 2077 is, instead of a fan base sharing how awful and disappointing it was. It's a real shame that this game that I myself was really looking forward to, I know so many people who are really looking forward to it, people who booked weeks off work or a week off work to have the time to play it, and to just have this as a reward for your wait is just a real sad thing. And I hope that CD Projekt have learned from this, and I think again they have, and it's just seeing where they take it next. I hope this isn't the last time we see Night City, and they try something again that's like this, and they do better. They've made a lot of learnings, and there's a lot that they can improve on. So Night City, I hope to see you again. So there you have it. Me going through why each of the big reasons that I think the game failed in a review-like format, but I hope it doesn't feel like just another review, because I did try and spice it up with lots of different analysis of it, and I think the launch is the main reason, because it shut a lot of people off from ever going back. It shut me off from ever going back. But there are a lot of other issues, like the inconsistency in the story, the lack of a lore system, the misuse and waste of certain characters, and I think that they'll probably learn from this and make it a hell of a lot better. And it was a controversial game, and there are going to be people who are watching this going, I absolutely loved every second of the time I spent in Night City. And to you, I say I'm really glad for you, because if I had done the same, then I would have been really happy to have sung its praises, because I really did want to, because I really like the company. I think CD Projekt Red are really sound. And I am looking forward to seeing what they do next. And I hope that this isn't shut down a lot of the developers who put a hell of a lot of time and effort into making this. And there was a lot of controversy about crunch culture and stuff like that going on. So I hope that the developers don't feel like all this hate is aimed at them, because it isn't. It's just sometimes you make a miss and a dud. And like, I've made bad videos, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So whilst I was disappointed, I'm not unhopeful that this company can pull it back. I think they just way oversold what this experience was going to be, and if they had delayed it and maybe took a few more time, then they would have had an 11 out of 10 on their hands. But you can't have that all the time. They probably had a lot of pressure to get it out, and I'm sure there was a lot of reasons to do so beyond that, and I'm sure many developers would have wanted to take the extra time, but they just didn't have the opportunity. Overall, I think this game feels like an end to the last generation instead of the start of a new one, as it should have been, and that is a real waste. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching this Echoverse Unlimited show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please put down below if there's anything you want me to cover, any controversies or anything like that going on that you'd like me to look into and do a bit of research on, and I will happily look into it for you. I want you guys to start thinking of ideas, so that I'm not so that you guys are seeing stuff that you want to see, But for now, we'll keep trolling along. We'll keep giving these out every week because I'm loving making them, and I'm hoping you are enjoying watching them. I will be back soon to the proper schedule. Hopefully next week we're going to get that sorted, and I'm looking at filming and getting the Guardians of the Galaxy review out next week too. So that's what we would like. It's all written. I just need to film it. So that is next on my list of stuff to do. But yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your Sunday, good roast dinners, and even better company. And I will see you on the next event, I guess. Stay noisy, guys. Love you all. Goodbye.